and welcome to Real 9. I'm one of your hosts, Creepy Uncle Kevin, and that's
Dungeon Dan.
And
I'm sorry, that was like the coolest fucking intro ever, Kevin. You just threw me off. I loved it.
All right, well, today we're talking about Peter Jackson's first film. You guys know who Peter Jackson is, right? He's that guy that kind of looks like a hobbit that's responsible for making all the Hobbit movies. And by the way, today they just announced they're making another Hobbit movie that Peter Jackson is producing because all of the films nearly made $1 billion. That's why. And there's been 6 of them. Yeah. So yeah, they're doing a movie, Return. It's called The Hunt for Gollum. And it's going to be produced by Peter Jackson and Fran. Am I saying her name right? Drescher? Not Fran Drescher. What's her name? Fran Walsh?
Fran, his partner. I can't remember her last name, but
but then Andy Serkis, who played Gollum, is returning to play the part, but he's also directing.
Really?
Bad because the last movie he made was Venom, Part 2, whatever it was, the Rise of Carnage. That even people that like Venom Part 1 didn't like Venom 2. But that's going to come out in 2026.
Well, that's kind of exciting in a way. I liked the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. I just kind of feel like, it's like, guys, we've had enough, I guess this is like any other franchise, you make that much money, you want to keep going.
Yeah, it's just, and it's been so long, it's kind of more concerned. You can feel that it's a cash grab,
True.
You think they would have done it. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, guys.
No.
We're here to talk about what Peter Jackson was doing back when he was like 25 years old, back in 1987. And God, when did we find out about this movie? It must have been.
It was the wasn't it the mid 80s?
Well, it came out in 87. So I mean, we must have found out about in the 90s. I remember it was a big deal because it wasn't a popular film. I think I found it actually for rent at Tower Video though.
See, I remember seeing an article in Fangoria way before it came to America. There was some lag time between being shown in New Zealand and then over here. But I wound up going to my local video store and I asked them to order it for me and I bought it and it cost me like $65.
Really?
Well, this was back when VHS and Beta were still brand new. All the stores were still brand new. So if you wanted to buy one of these, it wasn't a run down to fucking Walmart and grab it for $15 type of deal. You paid full price, the same price these guys would pay.
This is a pretty suspenseful intro because we haven't even said the title of the movie yet.
I know. But see, this movie has such a history, especially between you and I, because we got it, we saw it. And then you introduced more.
Were really difficult to kind of get a hold of, and there was so much kind of hype about it because you heard. And this is at the time one of the goriest movies I'd ever seen. Bad Taste, even though it's not. Yeah. It's not disturbing. It's certainly there's nothing in it that really would gross you out. Maybe the puke scene will gross you out, but the violence isn't disgusting really.
It wasn't done for violence sakes. This was like grotesque with humor. And that made this even better for me.
It's like Monty Python-esque,
Yes.
The flesh.
Good. That's a good way to put it.
Right. So it's all fun. And everyone has this New Zealand accent. Because, of course, this is Peter Jackson's first movie. Like I was saying, he was about 25 years old. It's titled Bad Taste, by the way. I'm going to finally let you know.
Finally. I've been sitting there like, is he going to say it or am I going to say it? Because we got to tell people, Bad Taste. Yeah. Very first Peter Jackson film that came out.
And he started it, making it with his friends on a 16 millimeter camera. And I know it started out as a 20-minute short film. And then it just ballooned into a feature film. And it took them 4 years to complete. And primarily shooting on the weekends. But somehow they ended up getting the New Zealand Film Commission came in to help finance and actually finish the movie. I think they gave him like over $100,000 to finish it, which is crazy.
Yeah. Even for back then, that's quite a bit of money. But I think that was the defining moment for jump. I remember writing them a letter because there was no internet back then. it was. It's not something we all had. But I wrote a letter to the New Zealand Film Commission when I was by the film.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get a copy of it that I could, own, plus posters. And of course, my response was, no, we don't have rights to distribute there. But here's a nice poster for you. And I'm all like, fucking A, free of charge Peter Jackson poster, which I don't have anymore.
What happened to it?
I don't know what happened to that one. It was the original alien flipping you off poster, just like the original box art was the alien flipping you off. When the U.S. got the distributions, they changed it. And I was just like, you guys are a bunch of pussies.
I still have my bad taste poster, but it's all damaged. I had it for like 30 years or something. I was just a kid when I first got the poster. It's all fucked up. But I still also have the Meet the Feebles poster and Brain Dead poster. Autographed.
I know about that Brain Dead poster.
Autographed by Peter Jackson. Man.
Fuck you.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's just, you have like 2 or 3 autograph posters that I would have loved to have. And it's like, that's what keeps you on top right now. It's all like, fucking Kevin's got those damn posters. Got a freaking signed Argento. I'm like, what a bitch.
I have like 7 signed Argentos. But you have George Romero, and I don't have George Romero.
I do have George Romero. But let's go back to bad taste, because I'm dying.
Yeah,
Can we do spoilers?
Yes, totally.
Good. Okay.
Well, let's
continue.
What the hell it's about, right?
Yeah, we have. You know what? We gave away the title, and we've gone off on our fucking tangents again.
I was familiar with it. So hold on here. I'm going to refer to my notes here. So there's this team. They're called the Astro Investigation and Defense Service, which stands for AID. So the way they say it, right? The Astro Investigation and Defense Service. Right.
That's really good.
It's like a group of these 4 ragtag dudes, right? There's Derek, Ozzy, Frank, and Barry, which sounds like they should have made that into an ice cream or something. Bad taste ice cream. We got Frank and Barry there, and they're sent to investigate the disappearance of persons in the town of Kayaharo, right? Because the population's missing. And then when they arrive there, it's just a group of like blonde dudes wearing blue shirts, like walking around with sledgehammers and stuff, and nobody knows what's going on. But yeah, so these guys in the blue shirts are actually aliens in human disguise, and they're killing people to harvest their meat to stock up their intergalactic food chain, right?
Right.
That's the story. And I guess you could say it's a bit of a mystery at first, huh?
You don't get to that part till well after the halfway point, right? That you actually start understanding what's really happening. But getting up to that part is it's so fun, because like the gore's over the top. Everything is basically stupid, but it's done so well that I loved it right off the bat. The first guy, the first blue suit guy they come across.
This is the first one where they shoot off the half of the guy's head.
I don't know.
That was maybe after.
No, you know what? I think that was the first guy, because right after the big gore scene came the funny line where he's like, "Oh, I got gunk on my striders or something." Basically got brains all over his shoes, and he was mad. But I loved the very beginning of the movie, because he was mixing like all kinds of different genres in there. It was almost like it was a guy at a desk with one of those old phones with about 15 different intercom buttons.
Like James,
like James Bond. And then they had him to where it was just all dark. The lighting, you really couldn't get any definition, which almost made him look like Churchill, only a cigarette instead of a cigar. And he's having a conversation about the town. He's like, and then he comes up with the big lines like, "Wow, we better call the boys." And then he hits a button with a piece of tape next to it saying "the boys."
Right.
And then that brings us into them coming into this town.
Yeah, and they're just like 4 regular dudes.
Yeah. They all look like they're rockers. except for Peter Jackson's character. Their vehicle is, I don't know what they call that type of vehicle, but it's like a van mostly, but it's small, like in Japan.
Mhm.
You know how the vehicles are all smaller. And then they drive around with the fucking Beatles poster.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. I mean, you notice it when you're watching it, and you're just all like, I'm just going to go with that. You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
They like the Beatles, I guess. But it added to the fun of the movie for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, go ahead. I know where you're about to get into, so I'm going to stop interrupting you.
No, I wasn't about to get into much. I mean, I was thinking more about the heads of the monsters, and I was thinking about that puke scene, actually.
Oh God!
For the first time, and I think we'd only seen a couple of gore scenes, but then they have, and that's Peter Jackson himself in the movie that does the puke scene. That's probably the grossest scene in the movie.
It really is. But Jackson played two roles.
Right.
There was Derek, and then there was the alien. Yeah. Now the funny thing is, the alien Derek had the classic mustache beard that you saw Peter Jackson wearing while he was filming, his first set of movies, not The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
So you got to picture him looking like that and thinner and younger. But let's back it up to Derek. Okay, so Derek's like the brains of the group. He's the gadget guy.
He really is the brains of the group.
Yes. And then is it Frank that was like always the one with the weapons? Wasn't that Frank?
I'm always confused about who's the one who's the other guy that has the long hair and he kind of didn't shave?
I mean, it almost looks like Peter Jackson, only taller. Yeah, I see. I get their names mixed up too. But basically, the boys, you've got the brain, then you've got the muscle who's always playing with guns. I mean, it's like anytime there's going to be a shootout, he comes out with like bazookas, and machine guns instead of just like normal guns that people would have. He's got the extreme of everything. And then the rest of the guys, they're just kind of there. They're part of the team. That comedy relief sometimes. Peter Jackson seems to be that guy. Peter Jackson did some amazing stunts, although the biggest stunt was a dummy, and it looked phenomenal. And that's the one where he falls over the cliff.
He said because he actually hung himself off that cliff with the rope. Right,
and it was like totally dangerous.
Yeah, and he said his whole foot went numb and was like dead for 5 days after that.
Yeah.
He talked about
so the character of Derek is fucking around instead of just killing the damn alien, and he gets himself in trouble, and now he's hanging off of this really nasty cliff, and he winds up taking a tumble, and that's where they used the dummy. But it looked so perfect. I didn't really notice it was a dummy until I realized it's like nobody could survive that fall, not even a stuntman. I mean, today you could, because there's all the green screen and
Derek survives.
In a manner of speaking, he does.
Yeah.
And this is where the Derek comedy starts to really ramp up, because he cracks his head on the rocks. Right. And he spends the rest of the time putting his brains back in and trying to tie his head together.
And even throwing in some other brains at times.
Yeah, whatever he could find, he's like, can't hurt, just puts him in. So I like the fact that he played the two roles, and I don't know. It looks like a lot of the movie, it's like they shot all of the Derek scenes, and then they went and did the alien scenes, and then toward the end, I think they were doing everything, because it didn't seem as separated. But the character of Derek goes, he gets crazy, and it really gets funny from there. I mean, they do some really stupid shit.
Right. He goes all Rambo.
He goes Rambo.
I think they're even kind of spoofing that with him tying his skull together. Sort of like
and the one-liners that he was coming up with. Um, do you want to jump up to the puke scene?
Sure. I mean, this is one of the most extended puke scenes that you'll ever see. He had to construct a fake head of his own face so that it could keep pouring through that. Probably just, it looks like Jello, right? Sort of Jello thing.
It looked to me like watery oatmeal, which really it turned my stomach to watch.
But I mean, what grossed me out was not really the vomit scene, but then when they pass the bowl around and have everyone drink the vomit. Yeah.
Yeah, that was harsh.
When do we see the first alien in this? What triggers the first?
Shortly after that,
yeah,
the aliens all of a sudden they don't hold their human shape, and the aliens look funny. It's like their hip bones get all big and they're jutting out of the pants, and they get these pointy like elbows and big fingered hands. They walk like this,
right? And
the heads were just hysterical. And the head is on the poster and on the front of the box that you'll see.
Right. His mother was saying that because he used to bake those heads in his mom's oven.
Mm-hmm.
That's why their heads are like that, to fit perfectly in her oven.
Yeah. The documentary, what was it called?
Good Taste Made Bad Taste.
Yes. The documentary, which, by the way, back then, Kevin got a hold of, I don't know, maybe a couple months after we got the film, we got the film, and it was all about the making of. So the oven in their house was really small. It's one of those old like 1950s ones, and the alien's head actually went up, but he couldn't fit it in the oven, so he had to squish all the clay back and push it. He had to push him down and make the molds thin enough to where he could just get it in there and bake it, because he used the hot foam latex. And I imagine he probably only got maybe 4 pulls off that mold before it was trashed. But as far as the technical aspect, that was amazing that he even, just figured out how to do it.
Yeah, he did all special effects, even the guns and the machetes. He made them, and he made them out of cardboard and wood and like pipe and build them together. Like the magazines are just 2x4s. They're just wood that he painted black.
Yeah, and the thing is they look totally legit.
Yeah, you don't even think about it, because why would it be just a total prop gun? I mean, it seems realistic that they're holding that. I mean, everything else seems so fake that you never think the machete would be made of cardboard.
Yeah, and I've seen a picture where you can see the other side, and he's got like popsicle sticks glued on it to give it some type of stability.
Right.
Then
he built he tried to build a crane, which it wasn't really much of a crane.
It looked like it was going to collapse at any minute.
The cameras, because he's using a 16 millimeter Bolex camera, which is really rinky dinky,
heavy.
But he tried to make a Steadicam.
But see, I thought that was awesome, because Steadicam was a brand new technology back at that point.
But I don't think it worked that well, is what cracks me.
No, it didn't work that well.
And through all this work to make a Steadicam, he's like, "Oh, I put this weight on here and these springs," and then they cut to the shot. I'm like, dude, I could have done better with just holding it, I think.
Exactly. And everything he built was out of wood, right. So it looks like a carpenter's nightmare when you see him holding up his camera on the Steadicam. You're like, God, that looks terrible. I mean, it looks uncomfortable to even try to wear that rig.
So, well, for Raimi and Evil Dead, which he did like 5 years before this, they just put it on a 2x4 and had 2 people carrying it, and it was a lot smoother than.
It was a lot smoother, right. But he built his own camera track system, and it's the same thing. Everything was built out of wood. Now that one worked. Right. You could do the nice smooth movements, but at the same time, it's like when you see pictures of it, you're just like, wow, man, it's like Carpenter was high as fuck and just started slapping shit together. Yeah. And it worked. But I gave him a lot of credit for being ingenious enough. Let's talk about the model building. Some of my favorite scenes in there were at the house where the aliens were, and one of them was the house, which turns out to be a spaceship lifting off. And I wondered how he did that, because that looked like a real fucking house. And then we find out it was a miniature. and he built it out of film boxes.
Right. He did a few different miniatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and scaled them.
Yeah. And it looked really good. And by the way, that's the shot. They had another crane for that. Did you see a picture of that crane? They had like 2x4s that were like barely together.
Yeah, and they were just
It
pulling up
was
the
fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just put a bunch of, I don't know if they did dry ice, but they put something in there to just generate an ungodly amount of smoke and then just lifted it. And it looked like a house lifting off. I thought it was great. I mean, we're talking early 90s. It was awesome. The makeup effects, he really went all out. I mean, we got the scene where he chainsaws his way through an alien's head vertically and goes through the body and then pops out down at the ass, and he's all like, "I'm born again," and plops out, and all this gore flying out everywhere. I mean, these are the kind of things that he's doing in this movie, and I had no doubt this guy was going to become a famous director.
Right.
He was just crazy with his dedication. Of course, it took him 6 years?
Yeah,
5 years.
Thought he would have went to go on to make like Lord of the Rings and win an Academy Award. It's crazy, especially with the movies that he followed up with. It was weird when he became popular. I almost felt sad, because he left us.
Yeah, and
with this first, right, like this, and then Meet the Feebles, and then Brain Dead, just knocked it out of the park. I thought he was going to be our filmmaker to continue making.
Exactly, especially when he did the Brain Dead, Heavenly Creatures. I mean, these were all top notch.
Yeah,
and I think it wasn't until Frighteners that I was like, "Oh shit, he's done," and it wasn't his fault.
All of a sudden, it was Michael J. Fox, and it was PG-13, and being produced by Zemeckis or something like that.
Yeah, and he had the studios all running down his back. But these are all the reasons that I think these are the reasons that Lord of the Rings worked, because that one experience, he said, "I'll do the movie, but you fuckers going to stay away. This is what's going to cost. You're going to put that in the bank. I don't want to hear from you until I'm done." And he got to do the movie he wanted to do. Anyway, I want to wrap a few more things on not Meet the Feebles. Now you got me thinking about that movie too. My other favorite scene is when they blow up the sheep.
Yeah, I was just about to mention, that's pretty much what I think of when I think of bad taste. Just boom.
It was because it was funny that again, the gun guy brings out a bazooka to blow up the house / ship, and it just goes through the windows. And then we get a cut scene where Derek's in there, and it just flies past, and he's all like, just watches it. And then you get an outside shot where it goes out the other window. House is undamaged completely. And then the sheep goes.
Right.
And, I loved it.
They cut out a lot of footage of the sheep. There was a whole thing where the sheep was a reoccurring character in the original cut.
Really? I didn't know that.
Kept bothering the four people, and they cut out all the scenes, and then they actually end up getting the sheep at the end. But it was Peter Jackson's choice to do it, because he said, "No, it's funnier just to show the sheep instead of." But he said in New Zealand, sheep are like actually a nuisance and a problem, so he actually included it in the script that these sheep would interfere with their antics.
And I think that's probably why I like the non-Peter Jackson film Black Sheep, because it was a take on the fact that their island is just overrun with sheep.
Right.
But
built around that.
Yeah.
And then the other scene I always think of, I think these are all in the trailer though, is the scene where Derek cuts through the wall, but he actually cuts his own silhouette holding the chainsaw. Walking through, which would be an impossibility, but it's just so cool looking.
It's a nod to cartoons.
Yeah.
Bad Taste is a nod to like everything that Peter Jackson loved about film or television. That was a great scene.
Looney Tune kind of aspect to it.
Yeah, exactly. I did like the character that, at first you think he's a priest and he's handing out the little pamphlets to get change for the poor. And it's really, he's just a con guy, but he winds up and again, to the cartoons, in a big cannibal's pot with a bunch of vegetables floating, and they're cooking them,
And
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So lots of fun, lots of jokes, lots of gore.
Really what saves it though is that ending that you were spoiling earlier, where the house lifts off and then Derek goes into space. It almost leaves it open for a part two. But then, I mean, you were not expecting that in this little kind of Monty Python-esque gore comedy. And then all of a sudden it goes and gets bigger and bigger, and they start blowing up the house and it starts taking off. And it's really surprising at the time.
Yeah. I mean, right up to the end where he's just in that chair patting the chainsaws, he's going after the aliens. It could have been a part two.
A big budget phase two where he goes to the planet.
I think that if he had a big budget, the movie wouldn't work. He would have to go back to he'd have to do part two just like he did part one, only much quicker. He wouldn't have to work on it on the weekends with his friends.
Well, I bet he never even considered a sequel.
Probably not. He probably was just happy to get that fucking thing done.